bum. What time is it? Oh, it's Poduty in the news. It's Saturday morning, January 10th. I've got a great guest joining me from Boston, Ande Lyons. Ande, welcome to the show. Well, the pre-show. Welcome to the pre-show.
Hey, I am so thrilled to be here, Jeff. I'm so excited to have a delicious conversation with you and your audience.
Yeah, we're going to have a great time. We've got 6 stories coming your way. If you're interested in live podcasting and creating community and building something special, Andy's going to share what she's done up in the New England area. She's got a great podcast we're going to check out and talk about. But Ande, I have just one question for you. What time is it?
It's showtime, Jeff. Woo-hoo.
What time is it? What time is it? It's time for Poduty and the news. Poduty and the news. The only live news podcast about podcasting from the stage. Poduty and the news. Poduty and the news. The only live news podcast about podcasting from the stage.
How cool is that, everyone? Oh my gosh, I love that Something Fierce almost as much as I love that opening number. You have a really great tune for your show.
I thought you were going to say I had a really great voice. I've been polling everybody. Poduty and the news. There'd be a lot of sampling and effects applied to get my voice to sound that good. This is Poduty and the crew. We do 6 live stories about live news podcasting, and we record it live. It's a very meta podcast. And along this journey of sharing these stories, I'm going to introduce you to Ande Lyons. Ande, tell us about yourself. We got your podcast, Don't Be Caged by Your Age. We got the New England Podcasters Group. Tell us what you've been building up there in the New England area.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I am all about aging out loud and proud. So I'm going to put it out there. I'm 69 and feeling mighty fine. I am the host of Don't Be Caged by Your Age. This is my 6th podcast since I started podcasting in 2012. And this podcast focuses on shattering all those age-related expectations and stereotypes that prevent folks from continuing to fuel their passion, fuel their purpose, and fuel their pocketbook. I'm talking about thriving after 65. And I love having conversations with folks who are doing all of that, have figured out that sitting on the couch just because the clock struck midnight on their 65th birthday, they said, I'm not done. And that's what I love to showcase. I also am the founder and host of the New England Podcasters Group. And this is a phenomenal group of indie podcasters from all over New England. Every second Saturday of the month, we gather in person. We have a featured speaker. We up our game. We celebrate. We connect. We collaborate. And we lift each other up. It also has an online companion for those who want to join us virtually from around the world because they love how we're glowing and vibing and they want to be part of our community. And it's the New England Podcasters Group Community Pod Garden. And there we continue the delicious conversations and collaborations and connections, but it's virtual. And I am so honored to be here with you, Jeff, today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to have you here. While you were talking, I dropped all of my show notes. They're all out of order. This will be a fun little game of almost like Twister with the stories. Right hand story number 1, left hand story number 2. I'm going to try to figure this out, but I'm going to put all the links to Ande's podcast and the New England
Podcasters Group. Yep.
Podcasters Group, so that you can connect. If you're in that area, check out the live events. Check out the podcast. There's something there for everybody. And Ande, are you ready for our first story?
Yes, let's glow.
Let's see if I got the story. This one could be in the right order. This is the ICEF podcast, took live podcasting global with a special episode recorded on location at the 30th anniversary of ICEF Berlin. Broadcasting straight from Berlin, host Greg Riggs and Martin van Deveen recapped major developments shaping international education, including Kazakhstan's aggressive growth plans and how potential U.S. policy changes could impact the ability of foreign graduates to stay and work. The episode also featured live, on-the-ground interviews with industry leaders, proving that live podcasting isn't just about audience energy, it's about capturing context, urgency, and credibility right where the story is happening. And this was a global podcasting event, and the international consultants for education and fans, this was just like a conference. It was people in a certain industry getting together because they want to better themselves. They want to become better at their jobs. And what better place to insert yourself than right there in a conference environment? So
tell me more about this, because I'm trying to picture, are people on the stage, everybody's taking a turn with the mic, or are there a few people on the stage live that are talking to folks? How did that work?
There is the link in the show notes if you want to read all about it, but they did record it and release it as their own podcast.
I think that's phenomenal, because what I love best about live streaming, and everybody should try going live, because most of us are not trained speakers. And even if you are speaking from the stage, you have your speech memorized. In fact, I often have guests who are phenomenal speakers from the stage, doing the whole screens and everything going back, the slides, but they get nervous when they come on a live stream, when they have to speak extemporaneously. And that's the beauty of live stream. You're going to capture real human moments. And so I love that they, for their community, said, let's really talk about this, but let's talk about it in the moment. Because some days you might just be compartmentalizing, but when you're with a whole group of people who are focused on a topic, you are going to start speaking more from the heart because you're surrounded by other humans. And so that connection becomes electrified because it's live and you're gathering all this information and thoughts that are being sparked by other people's comments in the moment. It's very exciting.
Yeah, and we're seeing this more and more at conferences, at events, where the entertainment for that event is going to be a podcast. They used to have like musicians and magicians and comedians come up on stage and entertain the crowd in between, the speaker sessions and the main event. But now more and more, part of the entertainment of that conference is going to be people to perform their podcast live in front of the audience. They record that for that podcast so that they can distribute it. And then what's that podcast doing? They're promoting that conference at a later date. So now these conferences have realized we can really expand our reach by having podcasts come in, record, and then have them release those episodes later on and promote the conference for next year.
And it's evergreen too. So people can find it 5 years down the road and go, what? I want to go to this year's event.
It's the best way to keep it going. And that snowball gets rolling. Speaking of rolling, let's go over to our next story. This comes to us from Film Ireland, and they brought deep creative conversations to life with Screen Sessions Live, a special live podcast recording featuring graphic artist Annie Atkins, known for her work on The Grand Budapest Hotel and The French Dispatch, in a conversation with production designer and concept illustrator Jill Beecher, whose credits include Babylon and Elvis. Recorded live as part of a Film Ireland Screen Sessions live event, the discussion pulled back the curtain on behind-the-scenes creativity, collaboration, and problem-solving in the art department, showcasing how live podcasting can elevate niche conversations by putting audiences directly in the room where creative insights happen. And I think this is a play right out of our playbook, Andy.
Absolutely.
A live event happening, and look what they're doing. They're bringing these two artists together in a room full of people who are maybe aspiring to be directors or aspiring to get into the movie industry, and they're sharing their experiences and talents.
Well, I love that too, because I'm sure questions were taken from the audience, but also it was streaming live. So folks outside that room could not only see it then live, but if they had some FOMO, fear of missing out, and couldn't be there, they could see it at a later date, but still feel like they were there live. And because it's live and it's video and it's streaming, you've got this wonderful visual effect, right, Jeff? That just makes it even more edutaining and exciting and impactful.
Yeah, it pulls you right into the moment, into that
Right?
stage. And if you're a fan of these two artists, or if you're aspiring to be like these two artists, you can't help but to just be drawn into everything they're saying and take in every word. You don't get that from an MP3 recording if you're just going to re-listen to the replay. But being there in the moment, and I always say that in the history of the world, this recording is the only time that'll happen in the whole history of the world. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity to see that performance live that time. And you can't recreate that or
No, you can't
recapture that.
duplicate that. You cannot duplicate that. And it's just so fresh and meaningful, and it has that deep human connection.
Let's see. Speaking of, you had to be there in the room. The HOWL Podcast pulled back the curtain on what live podcasting really feels like with a bonus episode recorded on stage in Lake Placid. Instead of a single polished story, this episode captures 5 stories performed live at Smoke Signals, complete with nervous energy, audience reaction, and the shared camaraderie that only happens in the room. Featuring voices like Emily Russell of NCPR alongside local storytellers and writers, the episode reminds listeners that live podcasts aren't just about content, they're about atmosphere, vulnerability, and community. And sometimes the magic is everything that happens between the words. What do you think about this one, Andy? Building
I
off
love
of-
this Something Fierce because I'm a fan of The Moth, NPR's The Moth, right? And that's people getting up, knees shaking, right? Voices shaking and sharing, right? And it's so, so very important. And I love, of course, that they call it talk art. Is that what we're looking at now? That's the next one. Okay, so we're still talking about the Lake Placid event.
Wait, there it is.
There it is. It's the HOWL Podcast. So what they're doing is they're creating an opportunity where people are going to get up and nothing will be edited. And so it's live, and it's that vulnerability, that human vulnerability to share their art, share their craft in front of an audience, which is the scariest thing you can ever do. And it helps those in the audience who are thinking about doing that themselves someday, finding the courage. But the person who's presenting is having that real live moment, knowing they're being recorded, that this is not going to be edited. It just brings a whole nother level of vulnerability and, deeper connection. I keep saying that word a lot with the audience, and it benefits both the person presenting, podcasting, live streaming, and the audience. And then again, those who are going to watch in the future, because it's real.
And what a beautiful setting, that lodge with the stage and all the wood pillars, and you're just drawn in, and you're kind of in, you sometimes think of maybe scary movies or suspenseful movies are always in the mountains at a lodge. And here you are, you're hearing these 5 intimate stories live from the stage. They're the only people talking in the room, and you have to be drawn into that stage. They pull you right in to share their story, and you're in this environment that's already a beautiful environment, and you're getting this once in a lifetime story.
It makes me want to hop in my car and go over there to Lake Placid.
Yeah. It's just a short hop over.
Yeah, probably a good 5-6 hour drive, but I just wanted to throw a little Boston accent in there for some color.
Yeah. Well, speaking of color, let's go to the Beardo and the Weirdo. I really like the name of this show. It made the cut just based on the name alone, but this is comedy, metal, and a live podcast taking the stage. This comes to us from Metal Sludge. The Beardo and Weirdo podcast is heading to a major concert venue with a live show at City National Grove in Anaheim on January 24th, blending stand-up comedy and podcasting into one high-energy night. Hosted by comedian Greg Gass, known for his legendary impressions, and Chris Kale of Five Finger Death Punch, the event features solo comedy sets followed by a live podcast taping packed with a backstage stories and special guests. Scheduled during the NOM show weekend, this show highlights how live podcasts are increasingly pairing with major cultural events and traditional entertainment venues, proving that podcasting isn't just filling seats, it's becoming the main attraction.
How fun is this? First of all, I wish I'd been in that audience howling away, but how creative and out of the box that these two, the Beardo and Weirdo and the folks who are supporting them, to bring this type of venue to an audience. Because again, the audience is now part of that podcast. Their laughs, and as we know, if you're a comedian, you are energized by the audience. So you're feeding off that. You're feeding off your guests. The two of them, oh my gosh, I think that's pure gold.
Yeah, it's one of these special events that we keep talking about where there are fans of the show. There's probably fans of the comedians who'll be attending. But because they love what you do, they're following what you create, they're willing to come out to an arena in January to support the event and to say, hey, this is something that we like doing. We like listening to you. We want to see you live. And as a reward, they're building this super event with multi acts. So they're going to be participating, and they're going to share this whole once in a lifetime evening with their true fans who are coming out to see them and support them.
I just love it. And I would have just loved being in that audience howling away. And who doesn't love, weirdos?
Yeah. There's the Beardos and the Weirdos. January 24th, if you're out in Anaheim, tickets may still be available. The National City Grove, Beardo and the Weirdo. Let's keep it moving right along tonight. The Have a Word podcast proved that live shows can deliver more than laughs during a near sellout night at Liverpool's M&S Bank Arena. Here's another arena, Andy.
Wow.
Co-host Adam Rowe with Dan Nightingale mix stand-up, surprise guests, and chaotic comedy with deeply human moments. Most notable when Adam gifted fellow host Finn Kulovos the chance to perform his music live on an arena stage. The night ended on an even bigger roll when Adam chose to donate $1,000 prize to Zoe's Place, turning a comedy podcast into a powerful act of generosity. It's a reminder that live podcasting isn't just entertainment, it's connection, community, and shared moments audiences never forget.
Wow. Isn't Adam amazing to take that moment and just from his heart go, I'm doing this now? And I'm sure that wasn't planned. I'm sure it was inspired by the moment. I have to admit, Jeff, I'm still trying to wrap my brain around podcasts and arenas. That's a huge pivot. And I'm going to be going to On Air Fest in Brooklyn at the end of February. That's what it's all about, is bringing podcasts like this to a wider audience and sharing the experience. So this is amazing. I love this.
Yeah, it's happening all over the place. And like we were talking before the show went live, this is episode 39 or 40. And every week I come to you with 6 stories, 6 examples of this happening around the world. And if you're not in tune with it, you have no idea that this is part of podcasting that's blowing up right now. This is probably the highest growth area. And what we're trying to build, like with the New England Podcasters Group, with Andy, with me in my theater space here, it's about bringing that type of energy to smaller independent podcasters and trying to show them, hey, there's another way to do this that's fun, that you can bring your community together. You can have a night out, and it's not going to be a $400 ticket and with $80 for parking. You can enjoy a local live podcast for $5, $10, $15 and have a great night out and just have a good time with like-minded people in your community.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that happen in our area. There's a woman up in New Hampshire that meets at a brewery in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, once a month to talk about current events in New Hampshire. There's another gal who interviews folks outside of Boston who are creatives, who are artists, who aren't getting the recognition that she thinks they deserve, and having that sort of audience participation live. It's very exciting.
Well, speaking of artists, you got the best segues tonight. We got art belongs in a museum. How perfect was that segue, Andy?
It's so good. Oh, I love it.
The acclaimed Talk Art podcast marked a major milestone with its first ever Irish live episode, recorded inside the National Gallery of Ireland during Dublin Gallery Weekend 2025, hosted by Russell Tovey and, boy, I apologize, everybody's name I butchered today, and Robert Diamond. The live conversation featured artist Isabel Nolan, Ireland's representative to the Venice Biennale. I'm going to cause an international incident with my Italian in 2026. Recorded in a lecture theater surrounded by centuries of art, the episode explored Nolan's deeply personal, research-driven practice, proving that live podcasting has firmly entered cultural institutions where long-form conversation becomes part of the artistic experience itself. And I couldn't even imagine being in the setting. You know, you're surrounded by these works of arts from all throughout time, and you're getting this information. You're taking in this artist, and I couldn't imagine feeling more cultured than being in this audience.
Absolutely. And it ties into what you said earlier, Jeff, about the opportunity to be part of something so fabulous and so fascinating without paying for parking, without paying the big ticket item, and still feeling the vibes of that experience in the art gallery. You know, we have at our Boston Public Library, 3 days a week, our local NPR station, Boston Public Radio, airs from 11 until 2 at the library. And it's of course it's live. And it just, again, a great experience to anyone who is there at the library can go in and pop in and watch, but also for all the listeners to know that they're live in front of another audience in such an esteemed location.
And that's one of the things we talk about. You know, think outside the box. We did a couple stories about arenas and theaters. Here's one at a gallery. Andy just mentioned the library. If you can't reach that kind of scale yet, if you're just thinking about starting out, I promise you that maybe even though you don't have a theater like the Poduty Podcast Theater here in Tarentum, you do have coffee shops, you have bars, you have restaurants with back rooms, you have social events, civic halls, you have libraries that usually have media centers, or even libraries that have auditoriums that rent them out very cheaply. It's not a big barrier to entry to start taking your show live if you start thinking outside the box. Where can I host this? If you approach your local coffee shop, you say, hey, I know what's your slowest day, Wednesday at 2:00. Well, maybe Wednesday at 2:00, they'll let you do a live show there. They may even pay you in scones and a hot cup of Joe.
Well, look at the brewery up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, right? I mean, the brewery is always looking to have people come in and draw, down a pint. But also remember your cable access TV facilities, folks, because they're desperate to repurpose right now because who's watching on cable anymore? And so that's another studio opportunity. I know Westford, Massachusetts, their cable access TV, they charge $150 a year to become a member, and you can use their podcast studio and their TV studio. That's very affordable.
Yeah, it's with $12.50 a month. That's not even That's not even a Starbucks with cold foam.
That's right. Right.
Let's see what we got. I think we did the HOWL already, which brings us back to the beginning. Andy, this has been so much fun. Time goes so fast when we do these on Saturday morning. I had such a great time. I love hearing your experience, and I love the insights that you brought about, the brewery, the New England Podcasters Group, and even Don't Be Caged by Your Age podcast. One last time, let's tell everybody how to meet you and connect with you. What's the best way to get in touch?
Oh my gosh, I would love to hear from all of you. Ande, Ande, Lyons, Lyons. Connect with me, LinkedIn, Instagram. I've got a YouTube channel. And also please visit don'tbecagedbyyourage.com. It is a whole new way of thinking about aging. We call it pro-aging. And it's all about thriving after 65, because if you've made it to 65, you've got a good 20 plus years left. What are you going to do with them, right? And then New England Podcasters Group. This is a way to, if you're thinking about launching a podcast and you want a supportive group of seasoned podcasters to help you, we're the group for you. We have a lot of laughs And it's just, we talk about all things podcasting, because when you're a podcaster, who's going to understand what you're doing? Nobody but another podcaster. And so you need to have that community to help keep you moving forward and figuring things out. So please visit newenglandpodcasters.group. And I can't wait to hear from you, meet you, and feel free to ask me any questions that you may have.
Awesome, Andy. Thank you so much. And if you liked anything that I talked about, if you liked hearing these stories that Andy and I shared with you today, we have a little theater space. This is where I'm sitting at right now. We'd love to host your show here. There's no contract. There's no minimum ticket sales. We just want to put butts in seats and bring live podcasting to the community. Reach out to me, Jeff at Poduty, PODUTY.com, Poduty.com. You can find all of our upcoming events. You can find information that I talked about today. You can find the podcast, PODUTY.com, which means, Andy, I only have one more question for you. What time is it?
It's the end of our show time.
What time is it?